恭请大德圣听，维持法会，济一切众生，请转妙法轮，教导我们如何了生脱世离苦得乐，殊证无生。Will the Sangha with great virtue, out of compassion for the sake of this assembly and all living beings, please turn the wonderful Dharma wheel to teach us how to leave suffering and attain bliss, and end birth and death, and quickly realize non-birth.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Homage to the blessed, noble, and perfectly enlightened one. Namo saranto suchetoye alahati sanmiao sanputoche. 无上甚深微妙法，百千万劫难遭遇。我今见闻得受持，愿解如来真实义。Supreme and wondrous Dharma, subtle and profound, rarely is encountered, even in a billion eons. But now we see and hear it and accept it reverently. May we truly understand the Buddha's actual meaning. Namo, quelling disasters, lending life, medicine master, Buddha. 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 Medicine master does come one, medicine master does come one, medicine master does come one, medicine master does come one. Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, Venerable Master, and all good knowing advisors, welcome back to class number 96 of the Medicine Master Buddha Sutra. As we use the sutra to explore the Dharma as taught to us by the Buddha. So before we begin, does anyone have any things they want to bring up? Any questions? Anything they want to share? Anything interesting? Okay, if you don't want to mute your mic, you can type it into the chat box. For now, let's get to our sutra. We are still continuing the story of Mara and the Buddha. If you recall from the previous weeks, so where are we? We are at the stage where Mara sent his general. So Mara's plan was because he was powerless against the Buddha. He wanted to trick the dragons into doing the battle with the Buddha on his behalf. So when that didn't really work out, because the dragons became very small, he sent one of his generals to talk to the dragons. Along the way, the, the, the general thought that the Buddha had lost power, went to see the Buddha and got, how you say, and the Buddha caused him to remember his past lives when he was actually a Mahayana practitioner, and he repented on the spot, and he became known as a Bodhisattva instead. And then the dragons, let me see what happened after that. Then, oh, I've been looking at this story for so long, I'm not quite sure. If someone can remember, you can type in the chat box for me. But now we are at the, where are we? Okay, let me add one slide. We are at the stage of the story where Mara's daughter talks to him instead. Okay. Oh, yeah, let me see. Yes. Oh, okay. So the Buddha talked to, so then the Buddha started speaking to the dragons, and Mara realized that the dragons were being, how you say, the dragons started repenting for their past mistakes, for why they were born in the way they were born, and that distressed Mara even more. So now we're at a point where Mara's daughter starts speaking to him. Okay, so let's see what happens. So the daughter of Mara, named Free of Darkness, said, sentient beings go for refuge in the spiritual practitioner, meaning the Buddha, just by hearing about him, not to mention seeing him. And then she said to her father, she said, you have observed him for a long time. Have you not learned his magic? And then Mara replied, he said, the sage Gautama is clever. Gautama meaning the Buddha. But instead of referring to him in a respectful way, he uses the Buddha's name. So he says, the sage is clever, naturally has great skills, and has penetrated the meaning of empty phenomena. Having crossed over, he is now freeing beings. Okay, so Mara's daughter then replied, she said, someone who has penetrated the meaning of emptiness cannot be shaken by 10 million Maras. I go for refuge in the one who bestows the happiness of emancipation. I go for refuge in the one who indulges in suchness, devoid of characteristics, and has mastered wisdom. I will learn his magic and liberate all beings. So magic here, you can substitute the word wisdom, okay, and liberate all beings. May everyone achieve unsurpassed Buddhahood in which all phenomena are mastered. So who knew? Who knew that Mara's daughter actually had a bodhisattva heart? And so all the 500 daughters of Mara, not just one daughter, but all his 500 daughters then assembled in that abode of Mara in his house and made aspirations to reach awakening, meaning the Bodhi resolve. So the evil Mara became even more frustrated, more distressed, frightened, and confused. And with great energy, he began to walk away. Why with great energy? Because we found that Mara had difficulty moving around ever since he everything that he planned for did not happen. So now we come back to the point where the dragons were meeting with the sage Jyoti Rasa, who was teaching them about astrology. And last week we saw that he managed to convince the dragons to go to the Buddha. So at this point, he says, the story, the Buddha says, not long after the sage Jyoti Rasa had left, Mara, through his demonic magical powers, produced a rain of burning stones that fell from his demonic abode in the sky onto that sacred site of wise sages. He did so with a wish to crush all the Nagas. So he saw all the dragons, realizing that the Buddha was not actually harming them. They went for refuge with the Buddha. So he wanted to punish the dragons by raining down stones on them. Not just stones, but burning stones. So nevertheless, through the power of the Blessed One, it turned into a rain of flowers instead, which only brought great delight to all the Nagas. So another plan of Mara being defeated. So the daughters of Mara, all 500 of them, then started saying, it said, even 10 million Maras are unable to kill those who take refuge in the Buddha. Even if their discipline is corrupt and their minds are disturbed, they will definitely transcend birth. Even a multitude of Maras are unable to kill those who toss a single flower to the teacher while making the firm aspiration to reach awakening. Without doubt, they will become Buddhas within the world. Okay, just give me a second. There's some people outside my door. Read this passage for yourself and I'll come back. Just give me a few seconds. Okay, sorry about that. Okay, so the daughters are all replying to Mara. He said, even a multitude of Maras are unable to kill those who toss a single flower to the teacher while making the firm aspiration to reach awakening. So this is for all of us. The how you say the efficacy of us walking the path towards Buddhahood. And then they said, without doubt, they will become Buddhas within the world. So those who take up a single fundamental precept, contemplate the meaning of even just one of his words, and give rise to the mind set on awakening, will definitely become leaders of sentient beings. So this is the how cause and effect works. Once we start walking the path, everything that we do that is based on the Buddha's teachings will surely one day bear fruit in the future. So they further addressed their father Mara. I said, Father, when the Buddha saw this group of nagas or dragons, he caused various rains of flowers to fall on their place. With his single Buddha domain, he has dedicated this to you. There is nothing that could have been done there. In that place, the teacher revealed a teaching that when heard a single time will exhaust the negative deeds of those beings and purify our karmic obstructions. Strongly distressed and criticized, the evil Mara felt miserable and hurt, so he retired alone to his house to mourn. Okay, poor guy, poor Mara. So at this point in the story, which I'm not going to share on screen with you because it's very long, the great being, Jyoti Rasa, the sage that the dragons had initially turned to for help, he flew to where the Buddha was. And in their conversation, they recollected a past life when they were still normal human beings. And in this past life, they had committed a crime and was sentenced to death by the king. And so they appealed to the Buddha at that time, a Buddha by the name of Mandara Waganda, the Buddha Mandara Waganda, who actually appeared to them when they were in prison. So they were caught, they were in prison waiting to be sentenced to death. They called out the Buddha's name. The Buddha appeared to them and taught them a mantra which they were able to recite single-mindedly, and that physically broke the chains that were used to chain them in the prison, and they escaped. They were able to escape. So this is very. If any one of you has ever joined a Guanyin session, or you have recited or you have read the Universal Door chapter in the Lotus Sutra, this is very similar, where they say if you call out Guanyin's name, if you are held in shackles, whether you are guilty or not, you will be freed. So this is a very similar story to that. And in the sutra, it also says that if they were recounting their past, and they said that if you can contemplate the physical form of the Buddha with no other thought or action, and with no distraction, that means you're single-minded in your concentration, you would be able to behold the Buddha in his appearance. And if you can do this from anywhere from 1 night to 7 nights, then you will be free. So this is also mentioned in the Amitabha Sutra. So now we move on to our slide. So as the Buddha was in this part of the sutra, the Buddha and Jyotisara, they were reminiscing about their past, and the Buddha actually shared the mantra that the Buddha that they had received in their past life. So this is part of the sutra after that, and it says, as this Dharma teaching was being delivered, meaning the mantra that enabled the Buddha and Jyotisara in their past life to be freed. It says, through the power of the Buddha, the 500 daughters of Mara, including free of darkness, heard this entire teaching on the Buddha's recollection that purifies the mind even while one is present in the abode of Mara. So the 500 daughters, while they were still in Mara's palace, was able to hear the teaching, the Buddha's teaching. And when they heard it, their female properties disappeared and they attained male properties. All those among them who had purified themselves in the past achieved the absorption of the Buddha's recollection and developed the qualities that had been described above. So the last sentence, the qualities that had been described above, what is that? So this is the part of the sutra that I didn't share, but I can share some of them verbally. Okay, what are the qualities? Okay. In the sutra, it says 86 quintillion beings. Quintillion is a number I'm not familiar with. I know million, billion, and then trillion. Quintillion, I guess, is 5,000 million. Is that right? Okay, anyway, it's like quintillion, 86 quintillion beings who have purified themselves in the past, attained the absorption of the Buddha's recollection, and developed the qualities that have been described above. So not just the 500 Mara daughters, but 86 quintillion beings as well. And then an additional 8 billion 400 million beings attain the acceptance of knowing the doctrine of suffering. I guess what this means is they penetrated the Four Noble Truths. And then some settled within the practice of the successive attainments and the first fruition, while others achieved the other fruitions up to the level of a worthy one. So among them, a lot of them became arhats, or what's another name for arhat? Just suddenly just slipped my mind. Some of them became first stage arhats, some became fourth stage arhats. And then the Buddha said that other qualities that the people who were able to listen to the Buddha's teaching at that time, if they wanted to, in a single day and night, they would be able to memorize all the teachings of the Buddha. That means all the sutras that the Buddha spoke. In one day and one night, they will be able to memorize that. And not just that, but they could also memorize the teachings of the external sects, all the non-Buddhist teachings. And then the Buddha said if they wanted to cultivate the four concentrations, meaning the four dhyanas, the higher bases of miraculous displays, this is the super spiritual powers, the four sublime states, etc. Within one day and one night, they would be able to fully master them all. And then if they wanted to, they will be able to know in a single instant all the deaths, rebirths, and mental activities of all beings in the three times. So in just one thought, any being that you encounter, you will be able to know all the things that they have done, all the births that they have gone through, and all the thoughts that have accompanied all their actions until the present time, and a lot more. There's a whole list of the benefits that everyone received as the Buddha was teaching this mantra that they heard in a past life. Yeah. Okay, let's move on. Let me see if there's anything else interesting. If you want to, you can read. Go and find this sutra, the Quintessence of the Sun Sutra. Is a very interesting sutra. It is the best way to describe it would be a mix of some of the Theravada sutras with the Shurangama Sutra, a bit of Avatamsaka Sutra, and maybe a bit of the Spirit of the Lotus Sutra, I guess, and the Amitabha Sutra as well. Yeah, you'll find that it's kind of like you take the best parts of all those, you put them in one sutra, and you kind of get this. Yeah. And the stories are amazing as well, as we are finding out. Okay, so the other benefits was that those people in the presence of the Buddhas, they I think this is the 500 daughters of Mara. They all assume the appearance of Mahabrahmas. Who are Mahabrahmas? Mahabrahmas are from the upper heavens, above the 6 desire heavens that we have gone through. So they are known as Brahmas. So they assume the appearance of Mahabrahmas. Maha means great. So Mahabrahmas means great Brahmas. Each of them was surrounded by and attended by retinues of many trillions, playing billions of instruments and drums as they flew away from the inconceivable arrays in the abode of Mara and landed in front of the Blessed One. So now they were able uh, to transport themselves from where they were to where the Buddha was. They tossed and offered different kinds of divine flowers, garlands, perfumes, ointments, parasols, banners, flags, precious fabrics, all kinds of offerings to the Buddha. They then circumambulated him 3 times, bowed to his feet, and sat to one side. Then the Buddha replied, said, Noble son, it is time for the dusk gone one, meaning the Buddha, to reveal the inconceivable teaching on the Naga's karmic action, the teaching of purification. And at that moment, everyone from the gods to all the Kumbandas, Kumbandas are a form of spirits. Apparently, if you have at night, some people at night they experience when they wake up they are unable to move, or in their dreams they feel like they are paralyzed. Apparently, sometimes it's caused by Kumbanda ghosts, so they are in a category of ghosts. But at this moment, from the gods right down to the Kumanda ghosts, they showered rains of flowers, perfumes. They made offerings to the Buddha of all kinds of nice, precious things, and they praised the qualities of the Buddha. So amid all this, the Blessed One stood up and departed towards the north in the direction of Mount Sumeru. So the Buddha was going, if you remember, the Buddha is now going to where the dragons are. Okay. All the gods of the desire and the form realms understood that the Blessed One wanted to go to the summit of Mount Sumeru, attended by his Sangha of hearers and surrounded by his Sangha of Bodhisattvas. When he saw this, Brahma, Lord of the Saha world, manifested a stairway for the Blessed One made of the 7 precious substances and covered with various fine fabrics and divine precious flowers. He said, Blessed One, please proceed on your way by using my stairway. So what happened was the gods, rather the kings of the gods realized that they understood that the Buddha wanted to go to Mount Sumeru. So the first of them, Brahma, also known as Lord of the Saha world, because if you look at the Hindu scriptures, Brahma is the one that created the world, or at least that's what they claim in their scriptures, and that's what Brahma thinks as well. Okay, so okay, maybe I just use 1 minute. There's a very fascinating sutra about how Lord Brahma was the first one to appear in his heaven. Okay, so he was the first one to appear in his heaven, and the lifespan is really, really long. So Lord Brahma was there for a very long time until one day he realized, he said, why am I alone? Maybe there should be other beings with me. And as soon as he said that, other Brahmas started to appear. And it wasn't because he thought that, it was just by coincidence. And so other beings started to appear, and 2 things happened. The first thing was that Brahma thought that because he had this thought, that he created all those beings. So that was the first thing that happened. Second thing that happened was that all the other beings who reappeared there thought that they appeared there because of Lord Brahma's thinking. So they thought that they were created by Lord Brahma. Then eventually, one of the beings, one of the Brahma gods died, was reborn as a human being, and could remember his past life, and he taught people that Lord Brahma is the creator of the universe. So that's how it all started. Okay, coming back to our sutra. Basically, what I just mentioned, the Buddha listed that as one of the wrong views. When the Buddha was teaching right view and wrong view, so the Buddha explained how that wrong view came about. Okay, okay, so now where are we? All right. So when Lord Brahma knew that the Buddha wanted to go to Mount Sumeru, he magically made appear a precious staircase for the Buddha to walk on as an offering to the Buddha. So when he made this staircase, every single king from the six desire heavens, okay, the heaven of the four kings, the Trimtrisha heaven or the heaven of the 33, the Suyama heaven, etc., all six kings didn't want to be left out. So they all six of them also made their own staircase made of precious materials for the Buddha to use. And it wasn't just the Lord Brahma and the six kings of the six desire heavens, but the king of the Asuras. He also saw what was going on and he also manifested a staircase for the Buddha. So, in order to please all of them, the Buddha didn't want to show favoritism. What the Buddha did was he made six transformation bodies. So, there were total of 7 staircases. The Buddha made 6 transformation bodies plus himself, 7, and all 7 of them use the staircase. Yeah, and in some, not in this sutra I didn't mention, but in some sutras when multiple offerings are made to the Buddha, what happens is the Buddha uses all of them, but the person who made the offerings, to them it seems as if the Buddha is only using theirs. So, but in this sutra, I didn't mention that. I just thought it was interesting to mention. So, for example, like 7 staircases, 7 Buddhas appear, but for each of the king, they think that, oh, the Buddha is using their staircase only. So they get maximum, they rejoice, they are rejoicing in the act of offering is complete. Yeah, I think. Okay. Anyway, coming back to the sutra. So when they saw this, all the Nagas who had assembled at the sacred site of wise sages became curious and asked one another. He said, where do those 7 beings who dwell within that brilliant light on the summit of Mount Sumeru come from? How come there are 7 beings? So there are 2 kings, Nanda and Upananda, said, those who dwell on the summit of Mount Sumeru together with the gods come from the priests of Brahma. They are the most supreme divine lords and have perfected the knowledge of the wisest beings. They are dwelling there out of love for us, and they bring us delight with their glorious brilliance. They will liberate us from our bondages, so you should all pay homage to them. So according to these 2 kings, these 2 dragon kings, they said, oh, these are gods from the Brahma realm. So they call them priests of Brahma from the Brahma realm. They are the most supreme divine lords. Okay, so that's their theory. All right. Another dragon king, whose name is Anavatapta, is that right? Anavatapta, yeah, said, no, it's not the Lord Brahmas. He says, this is the evil Mara, the leader of beings, the lord of the desire realm, gifted with magical powers. Out of affection for you, he is dwelling there surrounded by his sons and other beings. He will liberate all the sentient beings who are afraid of the sufferings of the desire realm. So that's how this dragon king actually sees Mara. He sees Mara as someone who is able to save sentient beings from suffering. So he says he will quickly liberate you from your sufferings. Then another dragon king, whose name was Lord of the Earth, he had his own theory. He said, no, it's not Mara. He said, these are the 4 great kings, the rulers of the gods and the gods of the heaven, free from strife, the heaven of joy, the heaven of delighting in animations, and the heaven of making use of others' animations. Basically, he says, no, these are the gods from the 6 desire heavens instead. So one by one in the sutra, different dragon kings all had different theories about the 7 beings who they saw walking up the staircase. They didn't know it was the Buddha. Another dragon king said that it was Lord Chakra from the heaven of the 33. Another dragon king said that no, these are gods from the form realms. What are the form realms? The form realms are very high heavens that you can only get to if you have if you're proficient in entering the first dhyana and onwards. First dhyana is a type of concentration where you can sit for up to 7 days according to the Shufu. without moving, without breathing. Your breathing stops in the first dhyana. So the heavens, these are also heavens known as the first to fourth dhyanas. So these gods, this Dragon King said, no, 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 these are gods from these heavens of the form realms. And then another Dragon King had a theory. He said, no, these are demons and yaksha leaders who will come to liberate you. And another Dragon King said he said, I don't know what you all of you are seeing, but he can only see monks. Said this, I can only see disciples of the Blessed One, the Buddha, coming up the staircase. So all of them had saw different things and had different theories about what was going on. Then the Buddha or the Blessed One sat down at the summit of Mount Sumeru. So he arrived at Mount Sumeru. And 100,000 retinues took their place along 84 leagues of that mountain. So it's a very big mountain and it was filled with the Buddha's disciples. The Buddha smiled and various blue, yellow, red, white, violet, and crystalline light rays radiated from his mouth and pervaded all the Buddha realms of the billions of abodes of Mara, Chakra, Brahma, and everyone else. So if you remember, one Buddha land, okay, is made up of a billion small worlds, a billion of our worlds. So in one world, there is one heaven for Mara, one heaven for Chakra, Brahma, and everyone else. So in one Buddha land, there are a billion of this heaven. So basically, there's a billion Lord Chakras. The Buddha has to how you say deal with a billion maras, a billion chakras. So when the Buddha spoke, the light from his mouth penetrated his entire land, and then in those abodes, all the beings renowned for their great power who were given the names Mara, up to the sages, were touched by the light. They all left their abodes and instantly arrived at the summit of Mount Sumeru before the Blessed One and his 6 Buddha animations or transformation bodies. So they all arrived to where the Buddha was. So all the gods, all the Maras from Shakyamuni Buddha's Buddha land, all 1 billion of them all came, except our Mara. Okay, all came except our Mara. What's going to happen to him? We'll find out soon. Okay, so through the power of the Blessed One, the 4 great Naga kings then left the sacred site of wise sages. With their tails still resting in their respective oceans, the Naga King Sagara, Precious Protector, Body Piercing Needle, and Hush to the Moon, those are the names of the 4 Naga kings. They stretched their heads up to the summit of Mount Sumeru, where they gazed one-pointedly at the Blessed One. Okay, so what's happening now is, previously, when all the dragons went to the spot on Mount Sumeru of the wise sages, that's the name of the spot, they all became really small. Their bodies became as small as they say the head of a needle. But at first they didn't realize that because they were still filled with anger and irritation by all the insects that were bothering them that were created by Mara. But dragons have the ability, maybe not all of them, but they have the ability to transform the size of their body. So when the Buddha finally got there, the 4 dragon kings, they were able to resume their maybe natural body size or their ability to increase the size of their bodies. So how big were they? Well, their tails still resting in their respective oceans, but their heads could reach all the way up to Mount Sumeru. That's how big they were. However, coming back to the sutra, the remaining countless trillions of Nagas were unable to leave, and so they supplicated stealthily. They said, please protect us and liberate us from this prison. So they were praying to be liberated because they still couldn't leave where they were. The Naga kings Nanda and Upananda thought the Blessed One will descend to the ground from the summit of Mount Sumeru. He will then reside here and teach the Dharma to the Nagas. With this in mind, they both stretched their own bodies from the ground all the way up to the summit of Mount Sumeru. So what they did was they They thought that the Buddha was going to come down from the top of Mount Sumeru to where they were. So they wanted to offer their bodies for the Buddha to walk on from the top to where they were. And as they did that, Lord Chakra, king of the heaven of the 33, the Trimsha heaven, he thought to himself, say, oh, the bodies of those Nagas are rough and dangerous to touch. It would be terrible if they were to harm the soles of the Blessed One's feet. He then draped the bodies of the Nagas in divine fabrics and their heads with powders made of the finest sandalwood and leaves of tamala trees. He also tossed divine flowers onto them. So he made them presentable for the Buddha, and so that their rough skin would not harm the Buddha. Okay. So at this point, don't you find that sutras are very interesting? The sutras are full of stories. Some sutras themselves are just like stories that the Buddha used to teach living beings. So, let me see. Okay. So, the Blessed One, the Buddha, now expanded the size of the sacred site of Visages, which is where the dragons were, to a width of 84 quintillion leagues. Why did he increase the size? So that everyone could fit in. And in the middle of it, Brahma, lord of the Saha world, spread cushions adorned with divine fabrics, ornaments, jewels, and precious gems. So they made a place for everyone to sit. The Naga king Sagara then uttered these verses to the Blessed One: you are endowed with an abundance of virtue, pure golden conduct, and immaculate compassion. Sublime among gods, humans, and dragons, you clear away the mud of their affliction. So the Sagara, the Dragon King, started, probably maybe he sang praises to the Buddha, but he definitely praised the Buddha. He continued saying, you fully establish all sentient beings on the paths of discipline, erudition, and knowledge. Please liberate those groups of Nagas. With your firm compassion, remember your past commitments. For the sake of other beings' minds, you relinquish their suffering. Just so, the Nagas in this place are endlessly afflicted by much suffering caused by delusion. Your enemies pay homage to you, your diligence is firm, and you are free from the jungle of birth. Please satisfy all the Nagas with the water of wisdom. So basically, he's praising the Buddha, he's requesting the Dharma, and on behalf of all the dragons who are suffering, he's asking the Buddha to be compassionate, to remember the Buddha's past vows to save all living beings and to help all these dragons. So then, the Dragon King Sagara then asked, he said, respected Blessed One, what are the deeds through which sentient beings are born as Nagas? Basically, he said, why have we become dragons? What did we do to be born as dragons? So the Buddha replied, he said, Naga Lord, there are 10 types of karmic obscurations through which beings will quickly be born as dragons. What are those 10? So from here on, we're going to look at 10 causes that create the conditions for a future rebirth as a dragon. So all of you should pay close attention and make sure you avoid all this so that we can avoid being reborn as a dragon. Because usually dragons are reborn because as Mahayana practitioners, they neglected other areas of the Dharma. So all of us as Mahayana practitioners should pay close attention to this. All right. So number one, the Buddha said there are sentient beings who exert themselves in the six perfections. The six perfections are also known as the six paramitas, and pursue the unsurpassed vehicle, meaning the Buddha vehicle, but are not quick to regard pleasures as defects, even though they strive in generosity and give freely. Through the power of their aspirations, they will be born among the Nagas. So these are people who do very good things. Okay, they really exert themselves in the six paramitas. What are the six paramitas? Okay, while I'm reading, if someone has Google, just Google six paramitas and type it into the chat box, please. Then we can share with everyone. Okay. So the six paramitas are known as are also practices of the bodhisattvas. On there's actually a list of 6 parameters and then 10 parameters. So the 10 parameters or the 6 parameters correspond to every stage of the Bodhisattva ground. On the first ground, the Bodhisattva perfects the paramita of generosity or giving. Okay, and then on the second ground, let me see. No one has typed in yet. What are the 6 parameters? Okay, 6 parameters. Okay. Generosity is the first one. Okay. Discipline or the precepts is the second one. Patience is the third. Diligence is the fourth. Samadhi is the fifth, or concentration is the fifth. And number 6 is wisdom. Okay. Thanks, Miss Yap. So those are the 6 parameters. So each parameter is perfected on the first 6 grounds of the Bodhisattva stages. Okay, and then the remaining 4, that's what makes up the total of 10 parameters. Okay, so this number 1, the Buddha is describing people who really practice. They practice the 6 parameters, which is very difficult to do. They are very generous, giving freely. However, they are unable to not unable, they do not see pleasures as something that still holds them back on the path. So to them, they probably think that pleasure is something to be enjoyed, something to indulge in that sense. So their understanding of the great vehicle is not full. Maybe they haven't listened to enough sutras or haven't investigated enough sutras. So because of this, they are reborn as dragons. Then number 2, they are sentient beings who pursue the unsurpassed vehicle and exert themselves in the perfection of generosity, but are unable to guide their discipline perfectly and in a faultless manner. Fearing the conditions of the hell beings and pretas, they will be born among the nagas through their aspirations. So these are people who are very generous. Okay, they give freely. They aspire to become Buddhas, but they break the precepts. They don't hold the precepts well. And then knowing that they have not held the precepts well, and maybe out of cause and effect, they're afraid that they might fall into the hell realms or they might become hungry ghosts. They try to avoid it, and their mind brings them to be reborn in the realm of dragons. And then number 3, they are sentient beings who pursue the unsurpassed vehicle but are filled with intense pride. They're very proud of themselves. They're not humble. They don't feel ashamed. They don't know how to examine their conduct. They don't want to take advice from their seniors or from anyone around them. And they just feel that they are superior than anyone else. Probably everyone around them can see their shortcomings, but not themselves. They think they're better than everyone else. These people are also are born as dragons. Then number 4, they are sentient beings who exert themselves in the conduct of the unsurpassed vehicle, but have a lot of aggression in them and are extremely hostile towards others. So they have ill will, they have hatred, they have anger. They're not friendly at all. They always look at the worst of people. They don't rejoice in other people's good deeds. They always find everything that they see. They somehow or other, they always find something to complain about. So due to the feelings of enmity they entertain, they will form the wish to be born among the nagas just before they die. Thus, they will be born there through their aspirations. So I guess in their, in their turbidity of emotions in their minds as they are about to die, when they are confused and their skandhas or their body and mind breaks down during the process of death, somehow or other, being so used to feelings of ill will, hatred, and animosity, that makes them want to become a dragon, according to the sutra. Number 5, they are sentient beings who genuinely follow the vehicle of the hearers. search for those who are worthy of gifts and are endowed with an attitude of worship. They may also be born among the Nagas through their own aspirations. So what are these? The vehicle of the hearers, those are people who want to end their birth and death. They pursue the sound hearer vehicle, which is they want to become sages as arhats, but only for themselves. They haven't made the aspiration to save all living beings yet. Okay, uh, they are, how you say, they want to create merit because they search for those who are worthy of gifts and are endowed with the attitude of worship, meaning they know how to recognize people with wisdom and they know how to respect those people. So apparently, some of them, if they have the aspiration, you can be born as a dragon. Number 6, they are sentient beings who possess the defects of miserliness and pride. Not only are you stingy, but you're also proud. They will be born among the Nagas. This is different. This one, you are born as a dragon not due to choice, but through your actions. So previously, it was, they had, how you say, they had kind of wanted to be born as a Naga or to avoid the hell realms. But number 6 here is because of their actions, they are born as a dragon, and I don't think they really have a choice. Number 7, sentient beings who delight in pride, they talk nonsense and lie. So they are careless in their speech. And they will also be born among the Nagas through their actions. Number 8, sentient beings who do not revere the Buddha, the Dharma, the Sangha, the precepts, the preceptors, the teachers, the ones who should be respected, and their parents. Due to pride and the delusion induced by inferior actions of body, speech, and mind, they will be born among the Nagas. So they do not respect people who are wise, they do not respect people who should be respected. They do not know how to repay the kindness of parents, and they neglect the precepts, and uh, they get reborn as dragons. Number 9, they are sentient beings who, overwhelmed with pride and ignorance, lack control, and do not behave faultlessly. They will be born among the dragons. And number 10, finally, they are sentient beings who are proud and who are used to slander and to speaking with abusive words. After they die, they will also be born among the dragons. So from 1 to 10, you can see there's a huge range. From people who really practice but neglect certain parts of things that they should be paying attention to people whose how you say, who totally their life totally goes against the Dharma. So it covers a wide range. And this has an effect on what kind of dragon they will be born as we shall see later. And then the Buddha said, furthermore, he said there are 3 other circumstances through which one will be born among the dragons. What are those 3? Number 1, so there are 3 more contributing factors. So there's a question. Melinda says, is dragons considered as the animal realm? Yes, dragons are considered as the animal realm. Their natural form is like a snake, like how it is depicted in the drawings. They have scales for their skin. Shufu says that dragons are considered animal realm and they are plagued by certain difficulties or sufferings as dragons. And one of them is that they always have insects or little small beings that are lodged between their scales that cause them great discomfort. So they are considered animal realm. But Shufu also said that dragons, there are all kinds of dragons. There are water dragons, there are air dragons, all kinds of dragons. And how you say, just like humans, some humans are born with a golden spoon in their mouth. Their lives are full of luxury and enjoyment. Some human beings suffer a lot in this world. You can see that happening right now. The same goes for dragons. So we're going to find out. So number 2, the same concerns the births among animals and preta. So this makes up number 1, number 2, and number 3. Through those three circumstances, one will be born among the dragons. Okay, you got that? Because let me read that again. There are sentient beings who are born among hell beings due to extremely severe negative actions of body, speech, and mind. After they die, they will be born among the dragons due to a small residue of those negative actions. The same concerns the birth among animals and hungry ghosts or pretas. Through those three circumstances, one will be born among the dragons. So because they still have a small residue of the negative actions when they have repaid back some of the karma that when they have to endure some of the karma that they have planted before, then they can be born as dragons. So Sagara, Dragon King Sagara, who asked this question, then he replied, he said, "Respected Blessed One, that is correct. Respected Well Gone One, that is correct. Says there are dragons in this place who have an abundance of possessions and enjoyments and are like gods, while others are like wretched humans struck by plague, like pretas or hungry ghosts, animals, or even hell beings that experience terrible suffering." So one of the dragons in the retinue is a prince named Lotus Face. Then asked the Buddha, he said, "Which actions have led to me to be born this way? Everything I touch with my body, even with the slightest brush, burns and is consumed by flames. I must always walk without sandals and move around naked. My parents enjoy perfect prosperity and an exalted status similar to that experienced by universal monarchs ruling over the four continents." So there's this dragon, a prince named Lotus Face, whose parents are like wheel turning kings. You know, they enjoy sovereignty over the four continents. They, as dragon kings and queens, they are very respected. They have a lot of spiritual ability. People respect them. They have retinues. They have great palaces. But he, as a prince, however, his body, everything that he touches physically burns. So it's asking the Buddha, why is his karma this way? Why is his basically fixed karma? Okay, why are his parents like that? But as their child, he has to endure this kind of cause and effect. So the Buddha told him, he said, "Oh dragon, in the past, 31 eons ago, the dusk gone one, worthy, the perfect Buddha, blessed Sikhin," that's the Buddha's name, Sikhin Buddha, "appeared in this world. At that time, there was a king named Free of Flowers. For 3 months, he offered all sorts of supplies to the dust-gone Sikhin and his retinue of hearers and bodhisattvas, hearers meaning the monks, and bodhisattvas, counting many hundreds of thousands of members, and he listened to the Dharma continuously. He made the aspiration to reach unsurpassed and perfect awakening. He also built the Blessed One a fully functional temple. He also built the Blessed One a fully functional temple. King Free of Flowers had a son named Arjuna. Because of his intense fear of samsara, that means this young man, this son of the king, was afraid of rebirth and continuous rebirth. He said this son became a renunciate or a monk in the presence of the Blessed One. Okay, so there's a king and his son in the time of the Buddha Sikhin. Okay, so then the Buddha explained, which I'm not going to show you on screen. The Buddha said that this prince, whose name was Arjuna, the monk Arjuna, somehow or other became jealous of all the other monks of the Blessed One. I guess because he thought of himself as a prince, you know, and maybe he thought that he was superior to all the other monks. And he just thought to himself, oh, all you monks are enjoying all these blessings and offerings, but these offerings come from my father. Okay. So as he saw all these monks eating all the food from the palace, drinking the beverages provided by the king, and sleeping on the beds, he was thinking to himself, you are only able to experience this because of the generosity of my father. And the Buddha didn't explain, but the Buddha said eventually the monks left the palace. Maybe the Buddha Sikhin left and the monks followed the Buddha, or maybe the monk Arjuna had a hand in driving the monks away. The sutra doesn't say that, but the point is when the monks left, Arjuna was delighted in their leaving. So instead of rejoicing in others' goodness, he became happy uh, because the monks no longer receive offerings, which is not a good thing. Okay, and then the Buddha said that after the monks left, Arjuna, who probably did not leave, could neither partake of these provisions himself nor give them away to others, either because he was stingy, um, or maybe even if he could use the things, he did not get any pleasure from them. And after he died, that monk was born within the great hells. And for many trillions of years, he was suffering in those great hells. The Buddha said he was boiled in those great hells. And the Buddha explained to him, he said, when he finally died and transmigrated from those hells, he was then born among the hungry ghosts, where he experienced suffering for many hundreds of thousands of years. After that, he again experienced further suffering among hells and as hungry ghosts. So that was the the unfortunate outcome of this monk Arjuna. Then the Buddha said, Naga, meaning the young prince, lotus face, he said, if you think that this person Arjuna, who became a renunciate out of fear of samsara and then suffered in the three lower realms for such a long time after he died, was anyone else, then you should not think that, because it is you who are afflicted by such karmic obscurations. From then on and for 31 eons, you have continuously been born in the three lower realms. Due to the residue of those karmic obscurations, that means because of the karmic seeds that you have planted before, you have now been born among the nagas, among the dragons. It was you who experienced those sufferings and no one else. In the future, after you die, it is likely that you will again be tormented continuously by suffering among the hell beings, animals, and pretas. So the Buddha basically, the young prince asked, why is he born in such wealth and splendor, but he's unable to enjoy it? And the Buddha explained why. The Buddha said, this is what you did before. So the Naga prince started to cry. He prostrated to the feet of the Buddha and exclaimed, he said, Respected Blessed One, I confess all the faults I have committed out of foolishness, delusion, confusion, and lack of intelligence. I confess each of my faults. Respected Blessed One, I will embrace the vows willingly. I wish to be a lay practitioner of the dusk gone one. I will renounce killing for as long as I live. I go for refuge in the Blessed One. So having realized his mistake, he tells the Buddha that he wants to repent and he feels really ashamed for what he has done. And also probably out of fear, because the Buddha said after you die, you continually be reborn in the hell, animal, and hungry ghost realms. That's enough to scare anyone. Then the Buddha replied, said, Excellent, noble son, excellent. Since you have gone for refuge in me with such determination, all the lower realms are now exhausted for you. After you die, you will achieve a human body during the time of Maitreya. You will become a renunciate in the presence of Maitreya and actualize the fruitions up to the level of the worthy ones. King free of flowers, who at that time revered Sikhin and his retinue for 3 months by offering all sorts of supplies and built a functional temple for the Sangha, was no one but this very Naga king Sagara. Do not think this was anyone else. So the Buddha said, your father, when you were the monk Arjuna, your father, who was so generous with the Buddha seeking and his retinue, is your present King Sagara. Okay. And he said, for 31 eons, he was never born in the lower realms, but instead experienced divine glory and excellent fortune on an extremely vast scale. He was born here among the Nagas through the power of his aspirations for the unsurpassed vehicle, and he now experiences such glory and fortune in this place. When he heard those words, all the Nagas became wary of rebirth and extremely unhappy. They developed the utmost respect and fondness for the Blessed One. So basically, the Buddha revealed that the former king, because of his good deeds for 31 eons, was always born in very prosperous rebirths, whereas this lotus face dragon prince, who as the monk 31 eons ago was jealous of the offerings made given by his father, and that the monks were benefiting from the offerings of his father. He was reborn in the hell realms, hungry ghost realms, for 31 eons. And now that he has taken refuge in the Buddha, has repented, and has how you say, changed for the better, the Buddha said that you will no longer be you. Okay, let's go back to that slide. Oh, sorry. Okay, he said, after you die, you will achieve a human body during the time of Maitreya, and the lower realms have been exhausted for you. And not only that, when you are reborn as a human, when Maitreya Bodhisattva or Maitreya becomes a Buddha, uh, he will become a sage. He will become an arhat himself. This dragon prince. So how is that able to happen? Is the karmic conditions magically removed by the Buddha? Well, I'm not sure about that, but I do know that one way to understand cause and effect and the rules of precepts and the rules of changing or transforming our unwholesome habits is that it can alter our future conditions. And by altering our conditions, it has an effect on the karmic seeds that come up. Karma, um, based on the things that we have done before, can only arise given the right set of conditions. So just like if you want to plant a seed, so let's say that it's a apple tree, okay, apple seed. You have an apple seed, all right? You want to plant an apple seed. What does an apple seed need? An apple seed needs soil, it needs water, uh, it needs, and then when it starts to grow, it needs sun, but you have to make sure when it's small, you don't give it too much sun, but it needs sunlight and constant watering. And when it's big enough and it starts to fruit, it needs pruning. If you want your apples to be sweet, you have to know how to prune the tree, and then finally you get apples, right? So if you plant an apple seed hoping to get a different condition, like say a durian tree or a banana tree, you're going to be disappointed. Why? Because you planted an apple seed, and an apple tree is going to be what you get. But along the way, if you remove one of the conditions, for example, like water, if you don't have water, then you're never going to get the apple seed to germinate and to grow. So that's how karma works. It needs a set of conditions at the right time. The set of conditions come together, and then the karmic seed can arise or mature. So by taking precepts and by say by lessening our greed, for example, we are altering our future conditions. And by altering our future conditions, we prevent certain karmic conditions from happening. For example, let's say there's someone who has cheated people before. Right now, there are a lot of scams going on. People try to get easy money, they scam other people. So let's say there's someone who has scammed a lot of people before, okay? And the chances of this person being now scam himself or herself in this present life is very, very high. Okay, it's very, very high. So this person does something unexpected. This person starts learning the Dharma, and he begins to take the precepts. And he understands that one of the things that the precept is supposed to do is not you follow blindly, but you are supposed to use the precepts to reduce your desire, your greed. So for example, like greed for money, do not steal. Some people follow the precept very strictly, but in their minds, they are always full of greed. When they see people have things that they don't have, they get jealous. When they see their neighbors have a nice car, although they are Buddhists and they hold the five precepts, they still get jealous, and they strive to get a better car for themselves, so they feel better about themselves. But this person understands that the five precepts, the spirit is to reduce greed. One of the reasons of the five precepts. So over time, he has transformed himself where he doesn't steal and he watches for greed in his mind and he lessens the greed. And then suddenly someone comes to him and say, hey, I have this great new investment scheme. If you invest like $1,000, you can get back easily at least $3,500. I did it and I got back $5,000. And the potential to get more is there, especially if you invest more. If this person had not taken the five precepts and he had continued his normal lifestyle, then it is very likely that he would be taken in by the scam because he would have wanted easy money. You know, he would had fooled a lot of people in maybe this life or past lives, and because of that, he was easily uh, maybe gullible or would fall for scams. But because he had taken the five precepts, he tells himself, yeah, maybe this so-called investment scheme might be genuine, maybe it's not, but if I don't pay attention to my greed and my desire, I will never be able to end birth and death one day. Then I won't be a good uh, disciple of the Buddha. So he said no. He says no to the investment scheme. He says, maybe you find someone else, not me, because I'm not greedy anymore. And because of that, he does not get cheated. Although he has the karmic seeds of being cheated since he cheated many people before. So that's a very simple example of how, if we practice and we practice in the right way, we understand why we are doing the things that we are supposed to do, we can alter our karmic repercussions. And then the things that we have done in the past, the opportunities for them to mature does not arise. I hope that makes sense. Okay. So sometimes the practices that we do, you can say that there's a preventive nature to unwholesome karma from ripening. All right. Okay, it's time. At this moment, do we have any questions? Anything anyone wants to bring up? Yes, no? Okay, I have something from Bodhidharma, continuation from 2 weeks ago, but we'll do that next week, I guess, since the story is a long one with the dragons. And then next week, we'll continue with this story again. Okay, in the meantime, let us dedicate merit, and then we can bow to the Buddhas. Okay, right, there's our dedication of merit. I'm going to invite everyone to put our palms together. May every living being, our minds as one and radiant with light, share the fruits of peace with hearts of goodness, luminous and bright. If people hear and see how hands and hearts can find in giving unity, may our minds awake to great compassion, wisdom, and to joy. May kindness find reward. May all who sorrow leave our grief and pain. May this boundless light dispel the darkness of our endless night. Because our hearts are one, this world of pain turns into paradise. May all become compassionate and wise. May all become compassionate and wise. Okay, let's do 3 bows to the Buddha. First bow, second bow, third bow, half bow. Bowing respect to the Venerable Master. Second bow. Third bow. Half bow. Alright, everyone. We will see you next week. Hopefully, you will have more questions or at least 1 or 2 questions next week. Alright. Okay.
Thank you,
阿弥陀佛。
法师。
Thank you, 法师。